All right, so we are recording. So we're here with Brian Bott. He is the owner of Sports Advantage Gyms and the Coach's Edge Consulting, who we partner with for our human performance and our summer weightlifting program. And he's just kind of here to talk to some of the coaches. Some of you have not met him yet, or we have some new coaches on staff to talk about our lifting programs or classes and the importance of being in those. So maybe we can start a little bit about you and our program that you've helped develop for our human
Sure.
performance classes.
Sure. Yeah, guys, thanks. Appreciate you taking the time. Brian Bott, I've been a strength coach for over 25 years at the University of Wisconsin. For 13, obviously worked with Bigfoot native Travis Frederick. In that time, stepped away and opened Sports Advantage. So now we have 7 gyms across the state of Wisconsin, and also started our Coach's Edge Consulting, which Bigfoot is a part of, and work with nearly 20 schools, working on developing the consistency and the relationships with the athletes and teams and coaches in the weight room, and educating our coaches, obviously, with a lot of different resources, and just trying to give everybody the whole gamut, with the understanding that, a lot of schools aren't able to outsource full-time strength and conditioning coaches, so to speak. And we know that there's a lot of different places out there where kids can go. And I understand, even though I am in the private sector, I understand the value of the athletes being in-house and being together and building teams together. And my belief is, that it's really hard to build championship teams if the kids aren't doing the hard stuff together. And we all think of strength and conditioning and speed and agility and stuff like that as tough stuff because there's no score, there's no ball, there's no any of that stuff. It's just come in, you work hard. But I think we've seen across the state of Wisconsin, the teams that really value, sports performance, strength and conditioning, whatever you want to call it, are the ones that are the most successful. Quite honestly, great teams are connected teams, and there's no better way to be connected than in the strength and conditioning arena, together, working hard with your teammates and classmates. So it doesn't always have to be, team, just the volleyball team, just the track team, things like that. The ultimate goal of the Coach's Edge is to build a culture throughout the whole school, throughout all sports. This isn't just a football thing. This isn't just a volleyball thing. This is a Bigfoot thing where, we'd like to have all the athletes on board, especially in the summer. The summer is a great time because there's not a lot of excuses. There's not, I have too many classes. I have this, I have practice. And we do it in the morning for the obvious reason is there's not a lot of dentist appointments early in the morning. So we try to eliminate excuses for kids and families, and give the coaches the opportunity to be around the kids, but also for the coaches to have, summertime for themselves too, where they can, be around the kids, but also have time off to recharge their batteries. So when the fall starts, everybody's good. So that's kind of like an overlay on the thought process of the Coach's Edge.
Yeah, and we've been working with you for 2 years, and we have a lot of data. So if coaches are maybe on the fence, we can go over data. Students are getting faster. We're timing them in the 10-yard flies, 40-yard dashes. We've increased our strength numbers. So we've been doing a lot. And based on the program we use is the conjugate method, which we use dynamic and max effort days. So maybe if a coach has not seen the students in the weight room yet, or been familiar with that style of training, maybe you can touch just a little bit on the dynamic versus max effort, because I know some students
Sure.
maybe say like, oh, we're maxing out every day, and that's not what max effort is. And dynamic effort, simple is not easy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great question, Allison. I think you only know what you know. And so most high school coaches will revert back to the way they trained. And so, what we did, and I'm 50, what we did when I was in high school is a lot different than what the kids should be doing and what they should be doing now. And so we use what's called the conjugate method. The conjugate method was actually formulated in the Soviet Union, at a club called the Dynamo Club for over 45 different sports. So the first great part about the conjugate method is it works for every athlete. I can go down lists of athletes in every sport in the state of Wisconsin over the last, 6 to 8 years that have either been all-state um, players of the year in the state of Wisconsin. Um, we work with the Madison, Love volleyball team, use the conjugate method. So it works for all athletes. And the reason why it works is it hits all spectrums of athletic development. So the first is absolute strength. And Allison touched on that a little bit. Absolute strength. How strong can you get? Most high school athletes are not strong enough, no matter what sport they're in. There has to be a base level of strength that we're continually trying to improve on. And so there are days, so we call them days to get stronger. And so there are 2 of those days built into the program. So no, we are not lifting heavy every single day. Um, we challenge the athletes every single day, but it's not a heavy, near max load. And that is one of the misconceptions that all we do is max out. We don't max out. Every day the athlete's going to feel a little different. And, their max effort may be at 90% one day, and one day it may be at 105% of, what I mean? So there's a lot of different variables that go into that. And Allison and her team have done an incredible job of understanding that portion of it. To me, the secret sauce are the next 2 parts of the program. The first, as she touched on, is the dynamic days. The dynamic days are basically speed of the bar or speed of the dumbbells. How fast can you move a sub-maximal weight? At the end of the day, as a coach, in any sport, and I don't care if you're cross country, if you're a distance runner, distance swimmer, tennis player, whatever, you will always take an athlete that's more explosive. I can't imagine a coach saying, no, I don't want my athletes to be more explosive or to be faster. Everybody wants athletes to be more explosive. And so what you have to realize is power is an equation of 2 things, speed and time, or speed and weight. I'm sorry. So how fast can you move a submaximal weight? That's going to increase the athlete's power capability. Okay. And at the end of the day, we can manipulate. And what we do is we manipulate that by using different variables and different speed quantities. And so a lot of times the athletes won't understand how valuable that day is, those days are, because they revert back to, well, I need to add more weight. It's too easy. And it's supposed to be easy. Like there should be no sticking point in the movements. The athletes should rip through them as fast as they can. The faster, the better. And so again, and that's again, we revert back to the absolute strength. That's why getting stronger is important, because if we're using a percent, which we use on our speed days or our dynamic days of 50%, well, if an athlete squats 100 pounds, 50% of that is 50. Okay, 50 pounds, simple math. But if we can get them up to 120, now that 50% is 60 pounds. And so if they can move 60 pounds as fast as they moved 50 pounds, that power number goes up. And so that's why, and so everything works together. So it's not just come in and lift heavy. Our absolute days dictate our dynamic days. So the formulas work together. And then the third part that I think a lot of times we fail to really hit on is what's called the repetition method, or our GPP. For lack of better terms, coaches, it's like a circuit. And it allows athletes to get a lot of different movements. This is where we really focus on injury prevention. A lot of posterior chain, upper back, lower back, glutes, hamstrings, the areas of the body that break down in the athletes. We hit them with a lot of volume here, because again, those are the areas of the body that break down. So could kind of go back to the way I started, like when we grew up, excuse me, we did what was called linear periodization. You start out doing 10s, then you do 8s, then you do 6s, then you do 4s, then you do 2s, then you test, right? The problem with that is you're missing these different variables at different times of an athlete session. With the conjugate, every week you're hitting absolute strength, you're hitting dynamic strength, and you're hitting repetitive strength. So they always have great work capacity. They're always in great shape. They're always getting stronger, and they're always getting faster. And the awesome part, to just kind of wrap this all up, is we've seen this in our gyms. The stronger the athletes get, the higher they jump and the faster they run relative to their body weight. So what that means is if an athlete is 200 pounds and they stay at 200 pounds and their jump height is 30 inches and we increase, their lower body strength, their jump numbers go up. the other great part, and I think, coaches really miss this part, is some of our athletes are going to gain some weight from strength training, right? They're going to be eating more, doing all this other stuff. If you gain, like say one of our, let's use football because there's a weight gain idea in football. Like an athlete's 200 pounds and he gains 10 pounds in the off season and his jump height remains the same, that athlete has gotten more explosive because he's trying to jump. If he's a 30-inch vertical athlete and he can still jump 30 inches while gaining 10 pounds, he's gotten more explosive because, again, the combination of weight moved at a speed. So I think there's a lot of variables that we educate on.
Right.
And we just need to do a great job of getting the athletes in the weight room because these variables will start to take care of themselves.
Yeah, very well said. And we also include some plyometric and jump
Yes.
training in there. I don't have the exact stats, but I know we've had a lot less knee injuries from non-contact sports since starting this training, where we're practicing jumping and landing and resistance with bands and weights and jumping. And that's just another small portion of what we're doing when you think of just, well, we're not just in the weight room, we're doing other things that are game specific or speed, agility, those kind of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions when people hear, absolute strength. They say, "Oh, you're just lifting weights." And as Allison can attest to, we don't. Like part of our systems are building absolute speed. And I know there's factions out there that will say that athletes are too strong, they can't get faster. That's false. That's absolutely false.
Right.
Athletes can get faster. Athletes can jump higher. We spend a ton of time, like she said, on all the different training variables: speed, power, strength, mobility, agility. All that stuff is built into the program. I'm just laying down the foundation. The foundation for every sports performance training system should be the strength of the athlete. And then everything else starts to take care of itself. But yeah, I mean, some of the, things that we've discussed on some of the jumps, I think our jump system, I have a hard time believing that anyone does jump systems better than we do. We have, girls in our gyms jumping 30 inches. I know Allison's had some incredible jump numbers from the female athletes as well as the male athletes. And so, really we try and give, in the program things that, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, even middle school kids, everybody can do. We want them to get really good at it. You know what I mean? Again, that's another misconception is that, oh, because they're lifting heavy, they're not squatting to depth. No, that's why we box squat. So we make sure the depth is correct or that they're, doing things incorrectly. No. How you do anything is how you do everything. And our technique has to be at a high level. And that's something that's very important to us as well. That's the standard that we coach by. And so rest assured that, this is something that's going to benefit all athletes. And the other best part about it is hopefully you're encouraging your athletes to play multiple sports. And there's no such thing as a sports specific training program for a high school athlete. Okay. High school athletes are in general prep. They need to get stronger, faster, all the other things we talk about. And so they should all be doing virtually the same stuff. We'll get baseball and softball coaches at, well, what about rotator cuff exercise? We do them twice a week. You'll get, volleyball coaches or women's, basketball coaches. Well, what about ACL prevention? Because we know ACL injuries are more prevalent female. Well, we do ACL prevention 2 to 3 times a week. We're hitting all of it for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody needs this stuff. And so that's the best part about it. People selling, your kids on sports specific training, that's just it's not what they need. And at the end of the day, I can tell you, I have, like I said, I trained 15 professional volleyball athletes, and we're talking about, one lady that was a gold medalist and then 2 silver medalists. They do 90% of the same stuff that you guys are doing at Bigfoot, exercise wise, progression wise. There's a little thing here, a little thing here because they're getting paid to play, and they're in their 30s, so some of your athletes are half their age. Same thing with Rob Havenstein, who plays for the Rams. Offensive lineman, 90 to 95% of the stuff that you guys are doing there, he's doing in his program. Just a tweak here and a tweak here. So, yeah, just really excited about the progress of the program at Bigfoot because it's been really, Allison's done an amazing job. She communicates at a high level. You guys have an incredible resource there. So hopefully that everybody's using her and her team.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you. We appreciate you and
Absolutely.
hopping on here. And I think it's just great for you to help out and see all the other coaches and just encourage the coaches, maybe stop by the class, stop by during the summer. The players love to see you there. Check out how they're working. They're working hard. So we want to see you there just
And I
as
would
much
say
as the
this to
kids.
I would say this to the coaches, like if you're in there, be involved. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And it doesn't mean you have to coach them on technique, but cheer for them, be a cheerleader. Hop into a different role than head coach role. And then also, if you're in there, stay off your phone because at the end of the day, like if we're trying to and stay off the whiteboard and don't talk basketball and like if you're in there and the athletes are training, be where we always tell athletes be where your feet are. Coaches, same thing. If you're in there, be a part of it. You know what I mean? Create energy. Because nothing is going to show that you devalue, the strength and conditioning program than if you're on your phone the whole time, not paying attention, stuff like that. Come enjoy the work your kids are putting in and whatnot, because I think what's happening at Bigfoot in the weight room is really special.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right.
I'll
Take care, Allison.
all right. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
All right.